What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Tuesday, August 19th edition of the Ship My Money Show. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoney DFS. 10-game MLB slate tonight, another game in Coors Field to deal with. Going to talk through all of them, going game by game, breaking down each matchup, taking a look at how my lineups would look right now. Sorry for the late start. I got distracted arguing about the Washington Commanders backfield on Twitter, which has been the case for me for the last 2 days, and lost track of time. But good to go now. Have lineups built to talk about. Can talk about all the matchups as usual, going game by game. Reminder, you can use the projections that you see on the screen. They are available at runthesims.com. Link is in the description below. Sign up using promo code UTAMLB. Get 10% off for the rest of the season. More importantly, for NFL, we do have all of our projection packages up over at Run the Sims. I truly think there's something for everybody, no matter what stakes you play, no matter what kind of contests you play, no matter what, how much volume you play. I think there's something that, one, will be useful to you, and two, will actually make sense within the context of the amount of money that you invest in DFS. You don't need to pay us hundreds of dollars a month just to get access to projections. You don't need to buy Sims just to get projections if you're playing one lineup or whatever. We have a $25 a month package. Comes with projections, optimizer, the ability to sim up to 5 lineups at a time. Perfect for you if you're a lower volume player, single entry, 3 max, just somebody that aggregates projections. Maybe you don't even want to use our sims, but you do want to aggregate projections. We have that available. And then we have the normal full Sims packages. We have the ability to add on Shady Advice's portfolio optimizer to those packages as well. Whatever you need, I think we have you taken care of. We have NFL prop betting, which is included in the Sims packages or available as a standalone. So again, you don't need to pay us hundreds of dollars if all you care about is our props. But if you play DFS and you want props, we have that all together as well. Ram said, is there a video on how to use the tools? There are a couple instructional videos, tutorials on the site. We will have other stuff up as well. Also, our Discord is free, so feel free to jump in there, ask questions. You don't need to sign up for anything to get in Discord. That link is in the description below as well. I am also, I think, going to just put out a video in the next few days, quickly kind of walking through in more detail those projection or those NFL packages, what we have available on the site. There is some stuff that will look a little bit different by the time the season starts as we finish with some changes that we're making, but all those packages are still up. So I will most likely be doing that as well. But yeah, if you have specific questions about anything, that Discord is free. Also, we are all in there, so you can check that out too. But getting into MLB here, starting with the Orioles taking on the Red Sox. No Jordan Westburg tonight for the Orioles. He injured his ankle yesterday. No Samuel Basallo, which is interesting. It weakens the lineup a bit. He was supposed to be the DH today. I don't know why he's not. As an Orioles fan, I'm fully expecting some sort of terrible injury news because that's how this whole season has gone. But you don't have Westburg in the lineup. You don't have Basallo in the lineup. So it is a little bit weaker Orioles lineup than it could have been. They are taking on Walker Buehler, who has not been particularly good so far this season, but he's only $5,500. He is projected for 8% ownership. I'm getting 14% right now. I have zero confidence that he actually pitches well. He's not very good. And this Orioles lineup does still certainly have some quality hitters in it. But at 5,500, I do think he is underpriced here. He's a starting pitcher, fully stretched out. If he's pitching well, it's not like he's going to get taken out after 3 innings or anything like that. Obviously not super likely to pitch well. Only a 16% strikeout percentage this year, 4.92 xFIP. There are some strikeouts in the Orioles lineup, though. You have Kobe Mayo batting 6th. He's somebody that, highly regarded prospect, has a lot of power, also strikes out a lot. So that is going to just kind of always elevate the strikeout percentage. Westburg not being in there, relatively low K guy as well. So I do think Buehler's a little bit underpriced here against not the best version of the Orioles lineup. Mayo, Beavers, Vasquez, Carlson at the bottom of the order here. Mayo and Beavers, both highly regarded hitting prospects, but both, young hitters. We don't really know what they are at the major league level at this point. Vasquez, not known for his hitting ability, very good defender in there in place of Westburg. Carlson has some moments this year, but also had a nice 0 for 35 stretch snapped a couple days ago. So, still certainly a flawed hitter, flawed hitters at the bottom of this lineup, or at the very least, prospects that are not proven. So I think Buehler should probably be something like, I don't know, 6,500 6,600, something like that. So I do think he's underpriced. He's a value option if you need it. Obviously, there is no safety there. The Orioles still have a team total between 4.5 and 5. They are still in Fenway Park. On the other side, it's Tomo Sagano going for the Orioles at 6,500. He is not a great strikeout pitcher. He gets by on command when he does get by. Overall this season, 4.74 xFIP, 4.13 ERA. 15% strikeout percentage is actually even lower than Buehler's. He's getting 1% ownership. I don't really have any interest in getting to him. If I'm going to pay down for a not very good pitcher in Fenway Park, I'll just save the $1,000 and go to Walker Buehler. Starting on the Orioles side, offensively, I do think they are a good offense to get to as well. I mentioned getting to Buehler for the savings. It's not getting to Buehler because I think there's some hidden secret about Walker Buehler that makes him good and likely to have a good game. It's simply saying, hey, if I don't have the Orioles and I need to save some money, Buehler makes sense at modest ownership and a really cheap price tag. That doesn't do anything to take away from the ceiling that these Orioles hitters have in Fenway against a pitcher who is not very good, and they're affordable. $5,000 price tag on Gunnar Henderson is the most expensive hitter in this lineup. Beyond that, it's $4,300 Jackson Holliday. Nobody right now projected above 10% ownership. Gunnar getting 9%. Holliday and Beavers getting 7 to 8. Everybody else getting 5 or less. I'm getting to 18% Dylan Beavers right now. Batting 7th, $2,300 price tag. First attempt at AAA this season, hit 304, hit 18 home runs, 152 WRC plus. He was a low K guy, walked a lot, also stole 23 bases. This is somebody that can run a bit as well, and he's near minimum salary. I'd like getting there. I'm getting to 17% Jackson Holliday. I'm getting to 16% Gunnar, 13% Rutschman, 11% Mountcastle, 8 Kowser, 7 Carlson, 4 to 5 on Vasquez and Mayo. So I am over the field on every single hitter on the Orioles right now. Again, normal caveat that doesn't mean I will be by the time slate starts, but I am perfectly fine. I think the Orioles are a good low-owned stack to get to here. They're in Fenway. You're going to have a lot of ownership just funneled naturally to Coors Field as always. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but whenever you have a slate that is reasonably sized, you have 10 games today, you have Coors Field, and then even more so when the road team in Coors is a team like the Dodgers, you automatically get pretty low ownership on a lot of other good spots that just aren't quite as good as the Dodgers in Coors Field. And I think that's what you're getting here with the Orioles. Again, Buehler has nearly a 5 xFIP this season. The game is in Fenway Park. We know that that's good for power. So far this season, from a power allowed standpoint, Buehler allowing a 166 expected ISO to lefties, but only a 16% strikeout percentage, 230 expected ISO to righties. Now, most of the Orioles lineup is left-handed, and Buehler has been better at limiting power to lefties, and Fenway does not play up left-handed power as much as right-handed power, but I'll still take my chances, with guys like Beavers, Holliday, Gunnar, Rutschman against Buehler. It is a nice bump for somebody like Ryan Mountcastle, though, at 3,400 with the Green Monster, 310 feet or whatever it is away in left field, and Buehler allowing a 230 expected ISO to righties this year. Kobe Mayo, same thing. Again, I only have 4% Mayo at 2,800, but if you told me that you wanted to, instead of 11 Mountcastle and 4 Mayo, split that to where it's 8 apiece, nothing wrong with that. Mayo has legitimate power upside as well. But overall, I just like the spot for the Orioles. I don't think Buehler is very good. I think the ballpark is certainly good for offense. I think that there's a lot of just underpriced upside on this Orioles team. You get a little bit of stolen base upside as well with guys like Henderson or Holliday. But, specifically with Dylan Beavers, I would expect him to look to run if he gets the opportunity. On the Red Sox side against Sagano, they have about a 5-run total. And there's team very similar to the Orioles where they're getting 5 to 10% ownership because they are not going to be a true priority on a 10-game slate that has the Dodgers in Coors Field. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a massive ceiling against a very mediocre pitcher in Sugano and at best, unknown Baltimore bullpen. I talked about it, I think, yesterday, but you're always going to have add-on run upside against this version of the Orioles because they traded essentially the entire back end of their bullpen at the deadline. They didn't trade Bautista, but now he's on the injured list with a, quote, serious or significant shoulder injury. So what you did was you basically They kept like a couple of proven major league relievers in Yennier Cano, who's struggled this year anyway, and Keegan Aiken, but those are back end guys now. So the entire front end and middle of the Baltimore bullpen is essentially guys that were just brought up from AAA, throwing shit at the wall, seeing if anything sticks to be in next year's bullpen. That gives you a lot of upside. If you get to Sagano early in the game, you're getting essentially AAA arms coming in, and that just adds upside, it increases the chances of you just getting that game where a bullpen gets torched, because these are not proven major league relievers behind Sagano. I'm getting to 12% Bregman, 12% Duran, 11 on Yoshida, basically 5 to 10 on everybody else. So far this season, Sugano against right-handed hitters, 197 expected ISO, 252 to lefties, 16% strikeout percentage to righties, 15% to lefties. He's giving up power to both sides. He's not striking guys out. Again, Fenway does play up right-handed power a bit more, but I'm not going to shy away from Jarren Duran at 6% owned or Yoshida at 8% owned either. I like the offenses in this game. I do have a little bit more Baltimore. I think that probably mostly has to do with the pricing and the positions. I think it was Jake that pointed out, it could have been somebody else, but I think it was Jake that pointed out yesterday the positionality at the top of the Baltimore order being favorable as well. And that's true. Like, you have Holiday, you have Gunnar, you have Rutschman. These are all guys at positions that are not necessarily the best or easiest positions to fill out with upside. Whereas when you look at the Red Sox, Duran's an outfielder, Yoshida's an outfielder, Anthony's an outfielder. The opportunity cost to get to guys like that is just always going to be higher than it is to get to like a second baseman or a catcher. Bregman at third base is, third base isn't the best position, but there are always still solid third base options. But Bregman is actually tied with Duran for my highest owned guy here. But from like a stacking standpoint, I think that is just a little bit of a benefit for the Orioles, in addition to the fact that they are a little bit cheaper as well. White Sox taking on the Braves in Atlanta, about a 4-run total for the White Sox, about a 5-run total for the Braves. Braves came in as massive chalk last night, started out really poorly, looked like it was going to make the slate fun because I didn't have them, and then they just went absolutely fucking nuts later in the game. And not that I was going to have a great night anyway, but it certainly ruined any chances of coming close to breaking even. Shane Smith going for the White Sox tonight at $7,000. Bryce Elder on the mound for Atlanta at $6,000. Elder getting 14% ownership at $6K. I have 13%. This is, I think, pretty similar to Walker Buehler, except for the White Sox are not as good offensively as the Orioles are. And Bryce Elder, while he's not a great pitcher, is probably a better pitcher than Walker Buehler. 4.18 xFIP this year for Elder, 18% strikeout percentage in 107 innings pitched. So he is $500 more. He is somewhat better than Buehler. The matchup, while the White Sox have been a just solid offense, at least seemingly. I don't have numbers since the trade deadline in front of me, but it feels like the White Sox hit every day now. But still, clearly not as much talent in that lineup as you have in the Orioles lineup. But I think that as a result, you're getting twice the ownership to Elder. I'm getting similar amounts of Elder and Buehler. That puts me over on Buehler. It puts me even with the field on Elder. I think they're very, very comparable plays. They are guys where you should not have any confidence that they are going to pitch well because they're not particularly good, but they're cheap enough and major league pitchers to where their range of outcomes is still pretty favorable for the price tag. Josh said Sugano throws like 8 different pitches. Yeah, he's a Japanese pitcher. They like all do. When he's on, he's getting ahead in counts and throwing his splitter, but not a lot of swing and miss for Sugano. For the bats here, I'm not getting to Shane Smith on the White Sox side. He's getting 1% ownership at $7K. I think there's other pitching I can get to today. For the White Sox bats against Elder, not surprisingly, I am getting to some of the White Sox, but mostly it's just a couple of guys, or really one guy in particular. Right now, I have 19% Miguel Vargas at $3K. He picked up third base eligibility, which is really nice because he is somebody that I think is just a little bit underpriced for his overall talent level. Bryce Elder has allowed a 182 expected ISO to righties this year, so he is giving up some power. Vargas has a 178 expected ISO against right-handed pitching this year, 15% strikeout percentage. He puts the ball in play, which obviously gives you the chance to just get lucky and pick up fantasy points that way. He has, above average power. so far this season against right-handed pitching. He's only 3K. You don't have to play him at first base anymore. That was kind of the issue before, was you do have relatively high opportunity costs generally at first base, less so at third base. And now it's just easier to fit him into kind of whatever type of build you're going with. If you need a first baseman that's cheap, you can go there. If you need a third baseman that's cheap, you can go there. He's projected for 9% ownership. I'm about 2x. I have 7% Talkman, 5% Baldwin, 5% Sosa, mostly in that like 3 to 5% range on the White Sox, other than right now, at least, prioritizing Miguel Vargas as a value bat. Again, it's not a bad matchup against Elder. They are low owned. They are cheap. They're not a priority for me, but Vargas in particular is showing up quite a bit. On the Atlanta side against Smith, yet another team with a total around 5, getting about 5% ownership throughout their lineup. 7% ownership projected to Michael Harris. 6% to Ronald Acuna are the 2 highest owned hitters in the Braves lineup right now going up against Smith. So far this season against right-handed hitters, Smith has held them to a 128 expected ISO, 315 expected WOBA. Lefties have been a little bit more productive against him with a 345 expected WOBA, 173 expected ISO. I think Shane Smith is the best pitcher on the White Sox. Very low bar, I know, but I think he's actually a decent pitcher. I'm getting to 10% Harris. He's 3,300 batting cleanup. That's just a cheap price tag for somebody that we know is talented. Got off to a really slow start this season, but has started to turn things around. Gives you some stolen base upside in addition to power upside. He's up to a 189 expected ISO against right-handed pitching now this season. So just shouldn't be $3,300 when he's batting cleanup on a team that has a 5-run total. Other than that, I'm mostly in that like 5% range or so. I have 6% Profar leading off at 4,300, 5% on Olsen and Alvarez, who's 2,400 batting 8th. But Harris is, I think, the price that stands out the most to me. Jake said he's been a solid Rule 5 pick, I think. Who are you talking about? Oh, Shane Smith, probably. Yeah. Yeah, he's been solid. Like, I don't think he's a terrible pitcher. But yeah, from the Braves side, like, it's just another offense where if you're getting to them, cool. Like, obviously they have a ceiling here, but I don't think Smith is a gas can or anything really close to it. I think Harris is the most appealing price tag here, but there's always upside on this Braves offense. Yankees facing the Rays in Tampa Bay, about a 4-run total for the Rays, 4.5 to 5 on the Yankees. Shane Baz pitching for Tampa Bay, Carlos Rodon on the mound for New York. Rodon, $10,000 price tag, pretty high projection for us here, coming in at about 19 points. Shane Baz, 7,700, pretty high projection for him as well. Baz getting 16% ownership, Rodon getting 7. Right now, I have 24% Baz and 16% Rodon. So right now, I'm actually over the field on both of these guys. And obviously, with Shane Baz, it is scary because the Yankees do have a good lineup. One thing that's nice about the Yankees lineup, though, from the point of view of Shane Baz, is that outside of Aaron Judge and to some extent Stanton, most of the hitters that you're at the top of the lineup or in the middle of the lineup that you're most worried about are left-handed. Grisham, Bellinger, Rice, and Jazz all hitting from the left side. Baz has been reverse splits this year, both in terms of power allowed and in terms of strikeouts. 28.5% K percentage against lefties this year, sub 100 expected ISO allowed, whereas righties have a 197 expected ISO and a 21% strikeout percentage. So one, that sets up really nicely for like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, and that's obviously really scary. But the fact that Baz is sub 8K comes with, legitimate strikeout upside, while it's a balanced Yankees lineup overall, a lot of the top and middle of the order is left-handed, and he's been reverse splits this year. I think the upside for him is pretty nice. I wouldn't be upset once I get to the bats if I'm also getting to the Yankees for sure, because I do think it's a very volatile spot, but volatility at 7,700 is pretty appealing for pitchers in large field tournaments. On the other side, about 2x the field on Rodon as well at 10K. You do get some strikeouts in this Tampa Bay lineup. Rodon is a solid pitcher overall. I don't love the price tag, but the ownership is low. He comes in with a 27.5% strikeout percentage this year, 3.82 xFIP. Stuff plus grade is down from last year, but it's still been above average. Fastball velo is down a mile an hour from last year, but the strikeouts have still been there at 27.5%. Like I said, so far since the start of last season, Tampa Bay's active roster against left-handed pitching actually down to 27th in strikeout percentage. That's gone down since last time I had looked, but they haven't been productive either. They are dead last in WRC plus. So I'll take some chances on Rodon here as just a low-owned, talented pitcher against the Rays. For the bats, I'm not getting to much offensively in this game. I was hoping I'd be getting to the Yankees, like I said, but I'm not. If I were to go to the Yankees, I obviously like Aaron Judge a lot, but even beyond the fact that just it's Aaron Judge, obviously everybody likes Aaron Judge a lot, but I like this matchup for Aaron Judge a lot. A pitcher that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts against right-handed pitching or right-handed hitting, gives up power. I like it for Stanton as well. Stanton is 4,800 now, though, so that price tag has jumped. I think the pricing on the Yankees is probably what's keeping me from getting to them. We just talked about the Orioles that are really cheap. We talked about the Red Sox that have a couple of expensive bats, but are mostly affordable. You have the Yankees with a similar run total here, and they're just so much more expensive to stack. I think that's probably what is keeping them in check for me. And they're not getting a lot of ownership either. 3% ownership projected to Judge is the highest ownership projection on the Yankees. You also have to keep in mind that you do have the Dodgers in Coors Field. So those are expensive bats that most people are going to want to prioritize as well. 3% ownership projection to Judge, probably is actually 5 or 6% because it's Aaron Judge and people just want to click him. But regardless, I don't think you're going to get much ownership coming into the Yankees if you did want to go there. And right-handed power should be the priority against Shane Baz. On the Tampa Bay side, I'm not getting to too much of them either. Ha-Sung Kim is in 8% of my lineups, likely to be leading off at 3,500. Everson Pereira is in 5% of my lineups, probably batting like 5th at 2,100. 4% Yandy Diaz, but nothing really standing out to me from the Tampa Bay side too much either. 161 expected ISO to righties for Rodon this year, 26% strikeout percentage. He has struck lefties out 32% of the time. Clearly, you're going to prefer right-handed bats to left-handed bats against him, but it's not like he's a lefty that gives up a ton of production to righties or anything like that. Texas facing the Royals in Kansas City. For Kansas City, we have Seth Lugo. For the Rangers, we have Merrill Kelly. Neither pitcher pulling much ownership here. Neither pitcher getting into my lineups right now. Not a good park for getting strikeouts. Not a good park for hitting home runs, but a good park for scoring runs in general. Neither of these pitchers are particularly inexpensive. Kansas City as an offense, even putting aside the ballpark, doesn't strike out a lot. 3% ownership coming into Lugo, 2% to Kelly. I don't have any of either one right now. If you are interested in them, in their stats this year, Lugo comes in with a 20.2% strikeout percentage, 4.42 xFIP in 131 innings pitched. Merrill Kelly, who spent most of the season on Arizona, comes in with a 23% strikeout percentage, 3.73 xFIP in 144 innings pitched. I think Kelly's a slightly better pitcher than Lugo, but neither one looks particularly interesting from a DFS standpoint here. I am getting to some offenses, particularly the Texas side. Unfortunately, I am getting to Fat Jock. He is 2,300. He batted 7th yesterday, so maybe he moves down in the order again and his projection goes down a little bit. But right now we have him projected to bat 4th at 2,300, and if that's going to be the case, he's just going to get into lineups. He's projected for 6% ownership. Seth Lugo's given up a 255 expected ISO to lefties this year, 383 expected WOBA, only a 19% strikeout percentage. And that is a change from Lugo. In the past, he's actually been pretty solid against left-handed hitters because he has this really high spin rate curveball. That's been a pitch that he relies on very heavily. He hasn't been effective against them this year, though. Peterson's been bad, but 2,300, especially if he's hitting in the middle of the order, I'm going to like that. Even if he's hitting lower in the order, he is still cheap. But the biggest thing here is just not projected for a ton of ownership. He's certainly the type of hitter where on slates where the field flocks to him because his median projection looks pretty good for his salary, I don't mind staying away because obviously projections are still going to be relatively heavily factoring in what Jock Peterson's done in the past. And I do think there is some chance that Jock Peterson is just done being a productive baseball player. But at 2,300 and pretty low ownership, a lot of that risk is just alleviated. Even if you believe Jock Peterson's done being a good baseball player, that doesn't mean he's never going to hit a home run again. And obviously all you have to do at 2,300 is, hit a home run, double, drive in some runs, and you're a good play. Marcus Semien getting 4% ownership. He's in 15% of my lineups at $3,600. I am about 2x the field on 5% owned Seager. And then I'm getting to about 7% Langford, sub 5% everybody else. The highest owned guys in this lineup are Jock at 6%, Seager at 5%. So, again, I mentioned Lugo's issues with left-handed bats this year. Seager is the best bat period, and also left-handed on this team. 426 expected WOBA, 286 expected ISO for Seager, who is only $4,500. So I like that as well. Quick look at the Kansas City bullpen, just to get an idea of exactly how good the spot is for left-handed bats. They do have 4 left-handed relievers in their bullpen, and none of them pitched yesterday. So that is a downgrade a bit overall. Like, you can still go to Seager. He's really, really good. You can still go to Jock. He's really cheap. But that is something to keep in mind. You are probably not going to have the platoon advantage later on for these left-handed bats. That is something that is factored into our projections because our projections are sim-based. So they're based on our in-house play-by-play sim, and you can simulate what relievers are likely to come in to face what hitters. As a result, that's also why you have this 55% pinch hit probability on Jock Peterson. You have a very high one on Evan Carter as well. And that is actually something to point out. I sometimes forget to do it on my own. You can see in our projections how that's factored in. If you are using a different sim, that is something to keep in mind. For example, and this is not a knock at all on SaberSim. I've said a million times that I think it's a really good product, but like, I don't know what their assumption is on the back end on Jock Peterson. So like, when I do run my stuff, I don't mind that I'm getting 15% Jock, like I said, but I do want to keep in mind that maybe I should lower the projection that I'm feeding into SaberSim a little bit, because it may be saying, okay, well, Jock Peterson's going to get 4.5 at bats, and you have him projected for 7 fantasy points. So we're going to create this distribution around that projection, when really I think he's going to get, like, maybe 2.5 at bats. So that is something to keep in mind. Just if you are mixing and matching, like, one thing I really like about our projections is that you can see all this detailed stuff. You can see how often we think he's going to get pinch hit for. You can see pinch hit risk. And if you were just using, we obviously don't have an MLB sim yet, but if you were just using our hypothetical MLB sim, you would be confident that that's all being accounted for the way that we're projecting it. When you are taking it across sites, you do want to keep that in mind, especially if you see somebody with a high pinch hit risk showing up a lot. There is a chance, you never want to double count. Like, if you were just using our stuff, you don't want to say, oh, well, I'm going to X out Jock Peterson because of the high pinch hit risk, because clearly we are already accounting for that. But you can, if you're using somebody else's stuff and you see Jock Peterson showing up a ton, say, okay, maybe they're not accounting for it as much as I would like them to, so I am going to downgrade him a little bit. High pinch hit guys are a really good example of that if you're using our projections in other sites, sims, to do that. If you're using an optimizer, you don't have to worry about it as much, because that 7 fantasy point projection from us is accounting for the pinch hit risk. And if you're just optimizing, you're not using a range of outcomes. You're just using that median projection. You don't then need to say, well, actually it's 6 because it's 7. So you do want to keep that in mind, depending on what other tools you're using. I just wanted to point that out because it's something that I forget a lot. And I just happen to think about it because I'm staring at 15% Jock Peterson when we have him projected to get pinch hit for more than half the time. So basically that all came out of me pointing out that there are 4 lefties in the Royals bullpen. So there is pinch hit risk on the left-handed bats for Texas, in addition to, if they don't get pinch hit for, their projection, their matchup not being as good anyway. But Seager shouldn't get pinch hit for. He's Corey Seager. It doesn't matter. Your biggest pinch hit guys here from the Rangers are Jock and Evan Carter. Rowdy Tellez, if he's in the lineup as well, very good chance these guys are not finishing the game. Josh Smith, relatively high too, but a step behind them. So from a stacking standpoint, Texas actually kind of sucks, I think, because of this. Like, there's a good chance that you just end up with a completely different lineup at the end of the game compared to the start. But individually, right-handed hitters here should be fine. They don't have as good a matchup against Lugo, but in terms of making it to the end of the game, they should be fine. Corey Seager should be fine. Anybody else, you're taking on risk. But as always, if Jock Peterson hits 2 home runs in his first 2 at bats, I don't really care how many more at bats he gets. So there's always some sort of trade-off there when you're talking about pinch hitting. But I did want to point that out. I think it's important. On the Kansas City side, Josh said at the end, can you touch on a few of the top pinch hit risks? Sub to the projections, but yes, I will. Kansas City, 4.5 total here against whoever, Merrill Kelly. Couldn't remember who was pitching. No real ownership coming into KC. Not a good park for home runs. Not a slate where I think they really stand out. Clearly, if you want to get to any of Bobby Witt, Garcia, Pasquantino, it's fine. But they don't look like priorities for the field. They don't look like priorities for me. I'm getting the 5% WHIT. That's the high mark for me. Everybody else coming in below that. Kelly is a solid pitcher overall. As I mentioned, he's not somebody that I really want to go out of my way to target. He used to be. When he first came up with Arizona, I didn't think he was particularly good when he came back over from, I think, Korea. But he has made improvements. Righties this year, 149 expected ISO. Lefties have done some damage, 194 expected ISO, 216 actual ISO, 20% strikeout percentage compared to 26.5% against righties. Pasquantino is your best, probably left-handed power bat. Yastrzemski has some as well. But none of these guys are really going to stand out as priorities. Probably have some pinch hit risk on Yaz as well. I know he got pinch hit for yesterday. 17% on Yastrzemski, 12% on Frazier, 22 on John Rave. So nothing like we're seeing on the Texas side, but there is some pinch hit risk here also. A's taking on the Twins in Minnesota. Joe Ryan pitching for the Twins. Jacob Lopez going for the A's. $8,200 salary for Jacob Lopez. $9,800 for Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan projected for 21% ownership. Jacob Lopez projected for 7%. I'm pretty similar on both guys. I have 17% Joe Ryan right now. I have 6% Jacob Lopez. The A's lineup has plenty of power in it. They're not a safe matchup. Joe Ryan at times does struggle with power, but there are also strikeouts to be had in this A's lineup. Ryan comes in with a 28.5% strikeout percentage, 3.59 xFIP. He's a good pitcher, 134 innings pitched this year. The A's, like I said, they have strikeouts in their lineup. You still have Jacob Wilson injured. Nick Kurtz leading off, very, very good hitter, strikes out like 30% of the time. Shea Langoliers hitting second. Brent Rooker strikes out like 25%. Soderstrom, I think, is around 25%, along with Butler. You have strikeouts at the top of this lineup for sure. The bottom of this order is not particularly good either. JJ Bleday, Brett Harris, Luis Urias down at the bottom. I'm pulling up the actual strikeout percentages for them instead of going from memory, but I do know that this is a lineup that has a lot of strikeouts. So far this season against right-handed pitching, for the A's, Nick Kurtz is at 28.5%. Lawrence Butler is at 26%. Bleday's at 24%. Rooker's at 24%. Soderstrom's at 21%. That's lower than I was thinking. Langoliers is at 18.5%. Urias is at 14%. Hernandez is at 8%. But the other thing you have to keep in mind, Hernandez isn't a particularly good hitter. He just doesn't strike out. Urias is a below average to average at best hitter. He just doesn't strike out. So it's not the end of the world that those are relatively low K guys. It does make it so like if you give up production to the good hitters are the ones that strike out basically. So if you give up production, if you don't get your strikeouts against like Nick Kurtz and Brent Rooker, then you're probably in trouble because you're probably not getting them against like Hernandez and Urias is kind of the problem and the risk. But if you're able to get out Kurtz and Rooker and Butler, there's a good chance you're getting them from strikeouts. So I'm right around the field on Ryan. Alan said, does the cold weather matter at Fenway for bats? And Jake said, does the weather get factored into the projections? Yes, the weather gets factored into the projections, wind and weather, both relative to the norms at the stadium. The actual methodology is a lot more complicated than that, but that's basically the way that we do it. So yes, it gets factored in. Alan said, does the cold weather matter? Yeah, cold weather always matters in the sense that if it were hot, it would be better. But it's another thing that you don't want to double count either. Like the Red Sox have around the 5 total. If you're using our projections, it's factored in. If it were hot in Fenway, the Orioles would probably have like a 5.3 total and the Red Sox would have like a 5.7 total. So it's certainly not the type of thing where you want to just like click off of a game because it's cold. But yes, it does matter. That game would be more appealing if it were 95 degrees and humid. For the bats, Jacob Lopez, 6% of my lineup, 7% for the field. He's been impressive so far this season for the A's. As a result, that salary has come up. 28% strikeout percentage in 76 innings pitched as a starter for Lopez this year. 3.87 xFIP. He's been legitimately good. But again, that salary has come up. It's not the worst matchup against the Twins. I think if you mix him into some lineups, that's fine, but he doesn't look like a priority for me or for the field on a slate that does have just some solid pitching options. Offensively here, starting on the A's side against Ryan. No real ownership coming in here. Highest guy is Urias at 2%. My highest owned guy is Langoliers at 4%. 3% Kurtz and Butler. Nothing really to see here. Ryan is one of the more talented pitchers on the slate. It's not a great, offensive environment. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's not like this game's in Sacramento. Ryan this season has allowed a 202 expected ISO to lefties, 165 to righties. Also noteworthy with Ryan, and something that should always be pointed out, 33% strikeout percentage against righties, 23% against lefties. That is concerning when you consider that he's giving up a lot of power to lefties, and he's still good at getting strikeouts against lefties, but he's not as good. When you look at Nick Kurtz, when you look at Tyler Soderstrom, when you look at Lawrence Butler in particular, these are three power left-handed bats. Kurtz and Butler are both relatively high K guys that are a little bit less likely to strike out against Ryan. They hit the ball hard. They do damage when they hit it. And Ryan's not great at controlling quality of contact to lefties. So if you were going to the A's, if you just wanted to single out a hitter, obviously you can always single out Nick Kurtz. He's really good, but it is actually kind of a decent matchup for Kurtz here. 365 expected ISO. Against right-handed pitching, 446 expected WOBA. Soderstrom, 221 expected ISO. Butler at 167. But when I've said, in the past kind of that I like the idea of power hitters. Like when I look at platoons, if you can find high strikeout, high power guys that are facing pitchers that are relatively not as good at striking out their side of the plate and give up power, you're kind of, and it's not exactly the case with Ryan because a 23% strikeout percentage is still good. It's not like he strikes out 10% of lefties or something, but he's not elite at striking out lefties. It's relatively likely that Nick Kurtz is able to make contact against him. When Nick Kurtz does make contact, he hits the ball hard. And when Joe Ryan allows contact to lefties, it gets hit far. So I think it's kind of like a sneaky good spot for Kurtz. That being said, you're not prioritizing a $5,700 batter against Joe Ryan all that often, but I do think it's just kind of a good spot. Jake said Rutschman is scratched, so that's going to make the lineup even better for Walker Buehler. Curious to see if that means Basayo's catching or if they go to Alex Jackson. My guess until we see it is Alex Jackson, but obviously we'll find out. They caught Basayo yesterday. I would assume they're not going to catch him 2 days in a row, but we'll see in probably a few minutes or maybe right now. Updated Orioles lineup. Luis Vasquez is hitting second and Alex Jackson is catching. Alex Jackson has actually hit for power this year. He has one of the fastest bat speeds in baseball. But obviously that is a big downgrade from Rutschman. The fact that you have Vasquez hitting second now is absurd. I don't know why that is even happening. Why isn't that Dylan Beavers or anybody else on the team? I actually just because it's going to be funny, I want to pull up Luis Vasquez's offensive numbers. Again, none of this means that Walker Buehler is necessarily going to be good because Walker Buehler does still suck. But 29 career games for Luis Vasquez, 35 plate appearances. He has a negative 40 WRC plus. Obviously, 35 plate appearances, 37% strikeout percentage. He projects for a 25 to 26% strikeout percentage and a 65 to 75 WRC plus. And somehow this guy is going to get the second most plate appearances for the Orioles today. I don't know how that possibly happens. So yeah, that's a bump for Walker Buehler. It was obviously going to be a bump anyway, but Vasquez hitting second is just absurd stuff. Sweetback Willie said, popped in late, so I got to restart from the beginning, but had to contribute to the engagement. Appreciate that. Any engagement always helps out. Reminder to hit the thumbs up button, like the channel, or like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. Anyway, I just can't wrap my head around Luis Vasquez batting second in a Major League Baseball game. For the Twins batters against Jacob Lopez, I am getting to them a bit more than the A's, which isn't really surprising. I've been getting to them a lot lately because they are mostly really, really cheap. Royce Lewis is $3,100. As I mentioned, Lopez has been good this year, but Lewis at the very least has power upside. We've seen him be a very good player in the past. Lopez has allowed a 170 expected ISO to righties, which isn't nothing, but it's not terrible. 28.5% strikeout percentage to righties, 30% to lefties with a sub 100 expected ISO allowed to lefties. Clearly, you're going to prefer right-handed bats here, and that's probably all that the Twins are even going to give you. This is going to be another team that probably has pretty substantial pinch hit risk throughout their lineup, or at least, for half of their lineup. Like, you're not expecting, Buxton to get pinch hit for all that often, or Lewis, but actually, these are a little bit lower than I would have guessed. Trevor Larnach and Matt Wallner, if they're in the lineup, there's not pinch hit risk, but there's a pretty good chance that they're not going to be in the lineup. So what you want to pay attention to is, again, if you're using our projections, it'll be right there for you. But if you're not, if you get a Twins lineup where you have, I don't know, like somebody like Austin Martin, his pinch hit, if he's playing the outfield, for example, his pinch hit percentage goes up if Wallner/Larnach or both are not in the lineup. Whoever is playing the outfield, if Larnach and Wallner are not in the lineup, pinch hit percentage goes up. If you were to get Ryan Jeffers at DH with Wallner, Larnach on the bench, Jeffers' pinch hit percentage goes up. If you get Jeffers catching, pinch hit percentage goes down. So it's kind of a tricky thing with the Twins, but you will want to pay attention to that because exactly what lineup they roll out there is going to impact their pinch hit risk. We just got the Rangers lineup, Fat Jock batting cleanup, and DHing. So even more pinch hit risk than normal there. Smith leading off, Langford second, Seager third, Carter fifth. Carter has pinch hit risk. Tellez is hitting 7, Osuna 8, Heim 9. So yeah, this is going to be, again, I don't mind going to them for the value, especially $2,300 Jock, but they have their lefties together too. Like, you have left-handed Seager hitting 3rd, left-handed Peterson hitting 4th, left-handed Carter hitting 5th, left-handed Tellez hitting 7th. It's very, very easy to match up with that later in the game. So I would be very cautious with full stacking the Rangers because they're going to kind of probably hockey line change their lineup at some point. Getting back to this one, I'm getting to 15% Lewis, 9% Buxton and Jeffers, 8% Keyshaw and Lee. I don't love the matchup for them, but I do like the price tag and the upside that they offer. Keyshaw is a solid hitter and gives you stolen base upside. Lewis is only 3,100. The only expensive guy on this team is Buxton, and it's Byron Buxton. Obviously, he comes with a high ceiling. So Aggressive Goose said that the Twins lineup is out. I misread it. So yeah, Larnach is in. Wallner is in. Jeffers is catching. Okay, yeah, so the stuff on the screen is right. I didn't realize that lineup had come out. So, yeah. Okay, the guys I'm getting to are in. Mickey Gasper was in the projected lineup I used. He's out. But Lewis, Buxton, Jeffers, Keyshaw, Lee were the guys primarily that I was getting to. They are all in the lineup. But yeah, Larnach and Wallner being in does lower pinch hit risk a bit. Jeffers being the catcher instead of the DH lowers pinch hit risk for him a bit. Now moving on to Milwaukee at Chicago. Low totals in this one, about 3.5 on the Cubs, about 4 on the Brewers. Without looking, I'm going to go ahead and guess that the wind is blowing in here based on those totals. Wind blowing in at around 10 miles an hour. Brandon Woodruff going for the Brewers. Jamison Taillon going for the Cubs. Taillon getting 4% ownership. Woodruff getting about 6%. It is favorable pitching conditions with the wind blowing in, but a $10,500 price tag for Woodruff against the Cubs is still tough to get to. I'm not getting to it right now. I'm not getting to $7,700 Taillon either. He should be good to go. He threw, I think, 84 pitches in his most recent rehab start, but the matchup against the Brewers still isn't great. They don't strike out a ton. Taillon's also just not a very good pitcher at this point. So I'm not getting to either pitcher. Neither one is getting too much ownership. If you can find the salary for Woodruff and want to go to him as a relatively low-owned guy, that's fine. There are obviously strikeouts there. He has a 33% strikeout percentage through his first 39 innings pitched this year. I will point out that his stuff plus grade is only 94, so maybe you do see that strikeout percentage come down at least a little bit going forward, but he's a good strikeout pitcher. The matchup against the Cubs just isn't great. You probably won't have Kyle Tucker. Maybe you do. They had said they were going to sit him for a couple of games. I don't know. Maybe it's just yesterday and then they bring him back for this game. I don't know what they'll do, but if you don't have Kyle Tucker, obviously that is a little bit of an upgrade for Woodruff as well. XXX Achilles said, I was just curious for your football projections, who's behind those or what's going into them. The end game group as a team is behind them. I think the process in general is going to be me and Davis doing a first walkthrough on like Tuesday, getting rates and everything set, and then finalizing everything with Utica on Friday, Saturday. Brick probably will be involved as well. But yeah, I think that's going to be like the general process. And the way that they work in general is we input our like take essentially on route participation, market share, all that stuff. There is algo driven stuff to, normalize everything and get touchdown percentages and all of that. And that'll create basically like a baseline median projection, the kind of thing that you would use in an optimizer, but also then we have the play-by-play sim that takes our inputs there and sims it out and gives you the actual projection based on those sims. And that's what you can customize as well. Since you asked, I'll actually go ahead and pull it up on the screen because I think I can get to it quickly. But one thing I really like about our NFL projections that I don't think anybody else has, Daily Roto used to, but they don't exist anymore, is especially with football, like so many people think they know a lot about football and they want to really have their opinions factored in. So you can see here, like the baseline, this would hypothetically be what our team decided on, like a 12%, 58.5% market share for Chuba, 24% for Dowdle, 9% receiving share for Chuba, etc. If you look at this and you're just like, no, that's bullshit. Chuba's getting every carry out of the backfield and Dowdle's not going to play. And you just make this like 75 Chuba and 0 Dowdle. And then you run the sim. It will give you the projection with Chuba getting all the backfield carries and Dowdle not getting any. So, if you think some receiver that we're projecting to be wide receiver 3 is actually going to be wide receiver 1 or something like that, you can just change it very easily. You don't have to just say like, with most sites, you get the projection and you have to say, okay, well, 1, what are they assuming? And then 2, how exactly, if I disagree with their assumption, do I fix that? You can do it all on your own in here. So that's one thing that I really like in general, but that's the very long answer for how our projections work. The short answer is the end game team collectively putting in inputs throughout the week and then using the play-by-play sim model to spit out the answers. For the offenses here in Wrigley, no real interest for me, period. There are good hitters in this game if you want to get to them, but wind's blowing in. Woodruff's a good pitcher. Wind's blowing in. Taillon's not a good pitcher. There's just going to be, spots that look better overall. As far as splits go, if you did want to single something out in this game, Taillon this season allowing a 218 expected ISO to lefties, 220 to righties. Strikeout percentage against lefties is set 6 points higher than against righties, but he's giving up power to both sides of the plate. The best left-handed power hitter on Milwaukee is Christian Yelich. On the other side, Woodruff this season, again, only 39 innings pitched, 181 expected ISO to righties, 113 to lefties. If you go back to 2023 for a little bit larger sample size, though, 119 to righties, 133 to lefties, 31% strikeout percentage against both. If you're going to the Cubs, it really isn't even about matching up with Woodruff. It's about literally just grabbing good hitters that have power and stolen base upside and hoping for the best. That's not going to be my approach on the slate, but that is what I would do if somebody told me I had to play the Cubs. Dodgers taking on the Rockies in Colorado. About a 4.5 total for the Rockies, somewhere between 7 and 8 for the Dodgers. Just absurd stuff there, which has kind of been the case all year because the Rockies absolutely suck. They don't have starting pitching. They don't have bullpen. They are just really, 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 really bad. $4,500 price tag here on Austin Gomber. Not interested. He is not getting any ownership. I'm not getting to him. Cool. I've been occasionally mixing in like the really cheap, not good Rockies pitchers when they're 4,500 or 5K, but we have I would just so much rather play $5,500 Walker Buehler against Luis Vasquez hitting second than Austin Gomber against the Dodgers in Colorado. Same goes for Bryce Elder against the White Sox. Same goes for, probably anybody else on the slate that is cheap. Emmett Sheehan, though, on the other side, only $6,700 here in cores against the Rockies, getting 10% ownership. I'm getting to 20% right now. It's the Rockies. Yes, Coors Field sucks, but it's the Rockies. Emmett Sheehan does have the ability to get strikeouts, especially, against the Rockies. 27 innings pitched as a starter this year with the Dodgers. 103 stuff plus grade is slightly above average. 25.7% strikeout percentage is good. If we go back and look at his minor league numbers, I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but I'm pretty sure it was pretty absurd strikeout stuff. He at AAA this year, 5 starts, 17 innings pitched, struck out 42.5% of hitters. Depending on what model you look at, he projects from anywhere from like a 25 to a 28% strikeout percentage. Oopsie has him at 28.5% for the rest of the season. We generally are pretty close to Oopsie in our in-house model because Oopsie factors in all of the most up-to-date pitching data, and so do we. So we usually end up being pretty close. And you're getting a really high strikeout percentage from them. You can see that we have a good projection on Sheehan here. So it comes with the normal risk of pitching in Coors, and Coors driving down strikeout percentage. You are more vulnerable to getting BABIP'd to death, but he's also 6,700. I like getting to Sheehan here as a value pitcher. Dodgers, bats, going to be popular. I'm getting to them. You just have to find, ways to be different elsewhere in your lineup. But, like I said, Buehler's relatively low owned. Sheehan's not getting crazy ownership. There's plenty of offenses that are 5% owned across the board that you can mix in with the Dodgers. 27% projected ownership to Shohei Ohtani at $7,200. I am still north of that at 35% right now. Alex Freeland, 3,400, second base, third base eligible, getting 24% ownership, 23% to Mookie, 20 to Teoscar, 10 to 20 on everybody else. I'm getting 35 Ohtani. I'm getting 27 Will Smith, 20 to 25 on Teoscar, Freeland, and Betts, 14 Pages, 13 Freeman, sub 5 on Call and Rojas. If you got to more of them, obviously it's fine. They're cheap in Coors, 4,200 for Call, 37 for Rojas. But right now, at least, I'm mostly around the field on the Dodgers, a little bit over on Ohtani and on Smith in particular. Could go either direction by lock. Wouldn't be the craziest thing if I got less of them by lock. I mentioned it yesterday, but there's been like weird fluctuations in how I've been approaching Coors Field on these shows versus once the slate starts. Usually it's been like the road team in Coors isn't showing up for me in the afternoon, and then I do get to them. Today, they are showing up for me, so I don't know, maybe I won't get to them. But either way, like regardless of what I'm doing, it's the same analysis here. Incredibly good spot. Coors Field is good for hitting. Facing Austin Gomber is good for hitting. The Dodgers are good at hitting. They're also going to be really popular. They are expensive collectively in that there's 5 guys here or 6 guys above 5K. There are a few cheap guys like Freeland that can help balance out those salaries. Ohtani's north of 7K. Like, it's an expensive stack, 5-man stack, obviously. But you do have cheap pitching on the slate. You do have cheap secondary teams that you can get to. Just out of curiosity right now, when I look at all stack types, the Dodgers are far and away my highest owned. That's, at least 2 Dodgers in 43% of my hypothetical lineups. At least, or 5 Dodgers in 12%. So they are actually my highest owned 5-man stack now, even though they're expensive. They're my highest owned 4-man stack. So I'm getting to them right now, at least in all stack types. And what that tells me, again, it doesn't mean that that's what I'm going to end up playing, and that's not relevant to you anyway. What it tells me is that I'm not having trouble making 5-man Dodger stacks that I think look good. And so you probably won't either. If you want to go that route, if you aren't worried about the ownership, you think the ownership's too low, you think that you have, enough low-owned pitching or secondary stacks to go to the Dodgers, you can find good Dodgers lineups is basically what that's telling me, even though they are expensive. TTID Forever said, is this Texas team going to be over-owned so people can get Dodgers bats? I assume that was the hack. I don't think they're going to be that popular. Peterson was like 6%. I think that was the highest guy. How many fantasy points are we happy with at 7.2 on DK for Ohtani? 14. I mean, it's hard to answer that question for MLB because it's not linear. Like basketball, because scoring is normally distributed essentially, and things are a lot more linear. You can actually answer you'll probably need X number of points at Y salary for your lineup to have a chance. In theory, Ohtani can score 0 and you can win. If cheap pitching does, if cheap pitchers beat beat expensive pitchers, which happens all the time, and cheap hitting beats expensive hitting, you can theoretically win with a lineup where you paid down for cheap pitching. You grabbed some random $2,300 guy that hit 2 home runs, and the rest of the Dodgers did well, and you got 0 from Ohtani. Scoring is just so non-normal in baseball that there's no real answer to that. Happy, probably, 20. something like that. Like if you told our projection on Ohtani right now is 14 and a half. He's in 35% of my lineups. Obviously, that's not giving him a score of 14 in every sim. It's giving him anywhere between 0 and probably like 50. But if you made his projection 20, I assume he'd be in like the vast majority of lineups. If you made it 10, I assume he wouldn't be in many at all. So happy, probably like 18 to 20. For the Rockies bats here against Sheehan, they're not getting any ownership. So if you want to go to a low-owned team in cores, you can. Sheehan's certainly not a proven major league pitcher at this point. 3.49 xFIP, good strikeout stuff, probably a good pitcher. I'm not getting to much of the Rockies. 7% Freeman is my highest owned guy here, 5% Goodman. So that's not really the approach I'm taking. But, there's always going to be some interest in going to a sub 5% owned team in Coors Field, but I'm not really doing too much of it on this slate. Reds taking on the Angels in Anaheim. Hunter Green pitching for the Reds. Kyle Hendricks going for the Angels. Hendricks is 6,200. Again, if you need a cheap pitcher, he's getting like 2% ownership. He's in 2% of my lineups. I prefer Buehler. I prefer Elder. I prefer Sheehan, but so does everybody else. The matchup against the Reds is okay. Kyle Hendricks is not very good, but if you really wanted to do like a side-by-side, comparison, 16% strikeout percentage for Hendricks, 16% for Buehler, 4.86 xFIP for Hendricks, 4.92 for Buehler, 4.18 for Elder, 18% strikeout percentage for Elder. The talent level really isn't very different between Hendricks and Buehler, and Buehler or Hendricks is going to be lower owned. I think Buehler's the preferred option for me and for the field, but clearly there's not a big difference in range of outcomes for those guys. Hunter Green is the pitcher that is certainly much more interesting. He's 9K. He's facing the Angels. He's got elite strikeout stuff. He's facing a right-handed heavy lineup that strikes out a ton. He has a 30.6% strikeout percentage in 65 2/3 innings pitched this season. He has a 124.5 stuff plus grade. To put that in context, Tarek Skubal is 116.5. He has league average command. His pitching plus grade is actually slightly higher than Skubal as well. That's a metric that combines command and stuff. Hunter Green is absolutely electric. He is only $9,000. He has been injured a couple of times this year, but he did return from the injured list on the 13th. He went 6 innings. He threw 85 pitches. We don't need to be super concerned about his workload here. He's probably not going to go through a 120, but other than that, like he can give you 6+ innings. I think he looks really good. I'm getting 37% right now. I'm a little surprised I'm not getting more because, one, we usually are a little higher than others on Hunter Green. We have him as the highest scoring pitcher on the slate at 9K. I wouldn't be surprised by lock if like my Carlos Rodon and or Joe Ryan has cut back a little bit and I'm just getting more 9K Hunter Green. But either way, I'm getting to 37% right now. I, again, would not be surprised if I actually get more than that by lock. I love Hunter Green here. If we look at his splits this season through his 65 innings pitched, 31% strikeout percentage against lefties, 29.5% against righties, sub 100 expected ISO with a 231 expected WOBA to right-handed hitters, 154 expected ISO to lefties, 279 expected WOBA. That's one big change that we've seen for Green, as well as he's, just kind of developed as a pitcher. He was I think, 3rd overall pick, very, very highly regarded pitching prospect, throws extremely hard. When he first came up, he was, one of these guys that would get a lot of strikeouts, but if he didn't strike you out, he was probably like missing over the heart of the plate. He would give up hard contact. He'd give up power. His command's gotten better. He doesn't give up that power anymore. He still gets the strikeouts. And when you talk about this Angels team that has a lot of power, but also strikes out a lot, you do have a pitcher that's very good at mitigating the power while getting a lot of strikeouts. I love Hunter Green here. I love the 9K price tag. I assume he's going to be my highest owned pitcher. For the bats, on the red side, solid matchup against Hendricks. I'm not getting much of them. Neither is the field, but they are definitely in that same conversation with the Orioles, with the Red Sox, with the Braves, with the Yankees, except for the Yankees are expensive. Just another team with around a 5 total. They're in a good park for offense, good park for power. they are affordable outside of $5,800 De La Cruz. And obviously De La Cruz has earned that salary. They're a high upside team that's not getting a lot of ownership. Right now, they're not one of the ones that I personally appear to be choosing, but that doesn't change the fact that they're a high upside team getting low ownership. Hendricks this year, ideally, you would get right-handed power bats here against him. The Reds don't have a lot of that. 151 expected ISO allowed to lefties by Hendricks this year compared to 218 expected ISO to righties. Again, you still can happily play Ellie De La Cruz, TJ Friedel, Gavin Lux against him. But when you look at what Hendricks struggles with, it does actually point you a little bit more towards like Austin Hayes, Spencer Steer, Tyler Stevenson, right-handed bats that do have at least some power upside. Hayes has a 178 expected ISO against righties this year. Noelvi Marte, 230 expected ISO. He is 4,800, but 230 expected ISO. Steer only 135 this season. Stevenson 172. Brian Hayes is right-handed, only a 112 expected ISO though. So right-handed bats against Hendricks is what you generally prefer, but again, don't let that dissuade you if you're going to the Reds from playing their actual best players like Ellie De La Cruz. Against right-handed pitching this season for De La Cruz, a 211 expected ISO. I don't have Friedel in front. For Friedel, sub 100, but gives you some stolen base upside. So I do think the Reds are interesting. I'm just not getting to them much right now. On the Angels side, I have like 2% of a couple of them. Nothing that stands out for me or for the field. I just told you how much I love Hunter Green. I'm not super excited to get to the Angels. Padres hosting the Giants in San Diego. Nick Pivetta for the Padres. Kai Tang for the Giants. No real interest in Tang. He is 5K. He's getting 2% ownership. I have 1%. If you need a 5K pitcher and you don't want to play the other ones, then sure, but not somebody that I would be particularly interested in here. Pivetta on the other side, though, does look good. 9,500. Again, we have him projected behind Green, but we do have him higher than every other pitcher, I believe. We have Pivetta with the second highest projection on the slate. I'm getting 27%. He is getting 18% ownership in my projection. He's a good pitcher. He's in a good spot. The Giants have one of the lowest totals on the slate at about 3.5. Pivetta has struck out 26% of hitters this year in 141 innings pitched with a 3.8 xFIP. Good arm, good matchup. Giants active roster against right-handed pitching this season ranks 15th in strikeout percentage. They rank 17th in WRC plus. Some of that WRC plus is driven by Rafael Devers, who hasn't been great since joining the team. So overall, I think Pivetta looks pretty good. For the offenses here, starting on the Giants side, I don't really have the Giants, neither does the field. Basically 1% ownership to the Giants. I have 1% of a few of them. On the Padres side, a little bit more interested there. 5-run total for the Padres makes them another team that looks pretty similar to all of the other teams that I've mentioned that are getting like 5% or so ownership. Nobody on the Padres right now projected above 5%. Tatis, Machado, Bogarts are all at 4%, and those are the highest. I have 9% Tatis, 5% Machado, Arise, 4% Laureano. So I'm not prioritizing the Padres, but they are low owned. They do have good hitters. They are facing a completely unproven pitcher here. So there is some appeal, but there are, just kind of other teams with similar run totals that I do prefer. Tang is a 26-year-old right-handed pitcher. He's made 3 total appearances with the Giants this season. 2 of them starts, 10 innings pitched, 21 career innings pitched with a 6.14 FIP, 6.3 xFIP. Obviously a small sample there. Projects to be like a 20 to 22% K guy, 4.2 to 4.5 FIP. So his projections going forward are better than his limited sample size in the majors. I think the Padres are fine, but they're not a priority for me. And then wrapping things up here with the Guardians and the Diamondbacks. Both of these teams have a team total around 4.5 in Arizona. Eduardo Rodriguez pitching for the Diamondbacks. Tanner Bybee for the Guardians. $7,500 salary for Bybee. $7,200 for Rodriguez. 8% ownership coming into Bybee. 6% to Rodriguez. I have 13% Rodriguez, 8% Bybee. I don't have a ton to say here. Bybee has seen a drop-off in strikeout percentage so far this season that I've talked about at length in the past. Everything else for Bybee still looks pretty good. His stuff plus is at 103, which is pretty much the same as it has been in the past. His command has been slightly below average, pretty close to where it's been in the past. You've just seen a strikeout percentage drop from 26% to 21%, which is obviously not ideal, but it has come with a salary drop as well. You do get some strikeouts in this Guardians lineup. Also, Kwan, difficult to strike out. and so is Ramirez. But there are other guys in the projected lineup that are not that difficult against right-handed pitching this season. Limited sample for CJ Kafis, but he's struck out a lot. Gabriel Arias is at 30% in 257 plate appearances. Bo Naylor, 27% if he's in the lineup. I have it backwards. I don't know why I'm reading off Cleveland guys against Bybee. Arizona against Bybee. They are still a good offense, but not as good as when they had Naylor and Suarez. Looking at the K's here, 79 plate appearances for Blaze Alexander, 35% strikeout percentage. Tyler Locklear is striking out 33% of the time through 54 plate appearances against right-handed pitching so far. Alexander in the lineup. Locklear is not. We did get this lineup. You have Pavin Smith in there. He's a 31% strikeout guy in 243 plate appearances. So that drives things up a little bit for Bybee. Marte and Carroll are obviously very, very good. Jake McCarthy, only a 20% K guy. Alec Thomas is batting 8th, 28% strikeout percentage for him. Carroll does strike out, even though he's a very good hitter, 146 WRC plus. So basically, it's a risky spot for Bybee, but you do have a couple guys in there that will give you a lot of Ks, specifically Smith, Alexander, and Alec Thomas. Jose Herrera is in there catching. He has actually only struck out 20% of the time in 143 plate appearances, but he does also have a 47 WRC plus. So not the scariest hitter. Rodriguez on the other side, 12% of my lineups. We do not have a Cleveland lineup yet. Looking at their projected lineup since the start of last season against left-handed pitching, Jose Ramirez only striking out 9% of the time. Steven Kwan only 10% of the time. Carlos Santana, 15%. But you get David Fry at 27%. You get Austin Hedges, if he's in the lineup, at 32.5% with a 38 WRC plus. You get Angel Martinez has been a low K guy. Manzardo probably not in the lineup, just takes a good hitter out of the lineup. Nolan Jones, if he's in there, has struck out 35.5% of the time. Brian Rocchio at 25.5% of the time. So the top of the order here, or projected lineup, Kwan, Martinez, Ramirez, doesn't strike out. Santana doesn't strike out. But if you get David Fry, Gabriel Arias, Nolan Jones, Brian Rocchio, Austin Hedges, that's a lot of Ks through the bottom of the order, which, obviously you would prefer the guys that you're going to face the most at the top to be the ones that are striking out. But when you're only $7,200, just the fact that you do have those high K guys throughout the order makes you somewhat appealing. So 6% ownership coming into Rodriguez. I have 12%. Not going crazy with him, but I do think he's got a pretty nice ceiling for the price tag. For the offenses here, not getting too much of either side. 12% Santana, 11% Martinez, Ramirez for me, 9% Fry, 7% Rocchio. Highest owned guy on the Guardians is David Fry at 10%, along with Jose Ramirez at 10%. Reminder that David Fry does come with high pinch hit probability, 0.39 there for Fry. On the Diamondback side, against Bybee, they are more expensive, particularly their good players. $5,800 price tag on Marte, $6,100 price tag on Carroll, $4,800 on Perdomo, $4,500 on Gurriel. Makes them pretty tough to get to here against Bybee. 3% projected ownership to Ketel Marte. I have 3%. That's the highest owned guy for the field and for me. Obviously, he's very, very good. It's just tough to get there. If we look at splits for these guys this season, as far as singling out what we would want to target, Rodriguez has allowed a 230 expected ISO to lefties, 170 to righties. Probably not going to be facing lefties. Slightly higher strikeout percentage against righties as well. On the Arizona side, Bybee, 179 expected ISO to lefties, 151 to righties. Nothing really surprising with either, or with Bybee. You do have some reverse splits for Rodriguez, but pretty much if you're going to go to these offenses, just play the best players. Now, to recap what I'm getting to and the highest projected plays on the slate, I'll put the highest projected players on the screen and then go through my personal exposures. At pitcher, I am getting to Hunter Green, Nick Pivetta, Shane Baz, Emmett Sheehan, and Joe Ryan as my top 5. I think there's a pretty good chance I have more Hunter Green by lock than I do right now, but he's already my highest owned guy. At catcher, I am getting to Will Smith. I was getting to Adley Rutschman. He's no longer in the lineup. Ryan Jeffers, David Fry. Reminder that Fry does have a big pinch hit risk. At first base, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Carlos Santana, Ryan Mountcastle. I want to highlight Mountcastle because he hasn't had a great year offensively, but he is someone that does have right-handed power historically, and I do like this ballpark and matchup for that. At second base, Jackson Holliday, Marcus Semien, Alex Freeland. At third base, Miguel Vargas, Royce Lewis, Alex Bregman. At shortstop, Mookie Betts, Gunnar Henderson, Corey Seager. In the outfield, Teoscar Hernandez, Dylan Beavers, more Shohei Ohtani, Fat Jock, Andy Pajes, Jarren Duran. All stack types. I'm getting to the Dodgers, the Orioles, the Guardians, the Rangers, and the Red Sox. I am curious to see if I get to less Baltimore as a stack now. Like, obviously, I'm still going to like Beavers, Mountcastle, Gunnar, Holiday, but not having Adley at catcher, like that was a really valuable part of full stacks, especially. So could see maybe a drop off in my full stacks for Baltimore. But I do at the very least still like, those individual players a lot. Full stacks, 5-man stacks that I was getting to: Dodgers, Baltimore, Cleveland, Boston, Minnesota. Everything's really flat for me though, with the exception of the Dodgers and Baltimore clearly standing out as 1 and 2. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if I lose some of those 5-man Baltimore stacks. Not that you can't play Alex Jackson. He had, I think as far as I know, every hit that he has this year is still an extra base hit. Like, he swings the bat very, very fast. He does damage when he hits the ball, but he's obviously not, especially batting ninth, the same level of appeal as Adley Rutschman in your 5-man stacks. To get to, I think it was Josh Gillum's question earlier, or request, about the top pinch hit guys. Let me refresh so that we can get the most up-to-date lineups here, and then take a look at pinch hit. Miguel Rojas, Rowdy Tellez, Jock Peterson, Alejandro Osuna, David Fry, Gavin Lux, Pavin Smith, Nick Fortes, Evan Carter, Moniak, Fernandez, Hedges. I think the ones that are probably most relevant from a fantasy standpoint are, Rojas, I guess, because he's in cores. Peterson, Fry, Lux, Smith, Carter are probably the most important ones. Yoshida in Fenway, probably the most important. And then finally, home run pick, I'll go Nick Kurtz. I talked about just specifically liking that matchup against Joe Ryan. He's actually third highest in our home run projections. So I will go Nick Kurtz. That's all I have for you on this one. Thank you for checking out the show. Don't forget to sign up. Use promo code Early Bird for Run the Sims projections. That gets you 15% off, not just this season, but for as long as you do not cancel your sub. You keep that price locked in. Early Bird is the promo code. Link is in the description below. Subscribe to the channel, thumbs up on the video, all that stuff. Thanks for checking out the show. See you back here tomorrow.